Welcome to This Nigeria. On this platform, we're going to be looking at the countdown to 2023 election in Nigeria and all the things that will be happening between now and the next presidential election in Nigeria. And with me today and my co-host and my friend and brother, I've got here with me Mr. Shegun Awosanya that you all know as Segalink. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much for having me, and I pray that we are able to do justice to all the things that we're going to be discussing and contributing to on the new Nigerian program.
You see, I was working on a content recently. I call it the dilemma of Africans in the diaspora. The dilemma of Africans in the diaspora. One of the dilemmas for me, as someone who lives in the diaspora, is that an average African living outside of Africa are always having their country in their mind and would have realized that no matter where you live as a Nigerian, you are always. And this issue of, every 4 years we have to have elections, sometimes by elections and stuff like that is actually one of the major, the reason for our problems in Africa. And that is why when this came about and we thought about, doing this countdown to 2023, I said to you straight away, let's go for it. It's something that I really love. How do we look at the countdown now? I mean, this is February 2022, and we're looking at election in 2023. We're exactly a year from now. Do you think Nigeria is ready? What do you think?
I believe Nigeria is ready for the elections, but I cannot say that Nigerians are ready for the election, because if you look at the position and the perspective and the preparedness of the people themselves, if you ask people on the streets, who do you think represents the leader or the harbinger of the Nigeria of our dreams, they will tell you that they don't even know who to begin to consider. They don't know who to vote for right now. They can't even tell how many candidates to expect. And truly and genuinely, it's been raining presidential aspirants since the curtain opened for people to start gathering, registering their interest in running for the position as aspirants. Uh, Across parties, we've seen a lot of people who are showing interest, who are coming under the different umbrellas and different guises, representing the youth, representing restructuring, representing representing Nigeria for all, representing. There are different things that people are coming out for. Some people are saying, "Look, when I come in, I'm going to build the economy. When I come in, I'm going to fix security. When I come in, I'm going to do all those things." So Nigerians generally are still torn. We're still grappling with the consequences of the last decision that were made consecutively, 2015, 2019. And so with that, nobody wants to make another mistake again. So we are once bitten, twice shy. At least from my own analysis for now.
So it make me see this way, especially because of when I give my opinion, like yourself, maybe online or on TV and stuff like that. And the feedback I give from the people is that the people are probably more talking about what they don't want and who they don't want than what they want. So, like you said, it appears to me that people don't seem to have or agree on exactly who they want. But when you mention a certain names, people, I don't want that one, I don't want that one. And it takes me to that issue of what, the parties are dealing with at the moment, particularly PDP, where they're dealing with the issue of zoning. But maybe before we talk about zoning, do we really agree that Nigeria is actually a two-party country now? I do say that normally, but
No, I wouldn't say Nigeria is a two-party system per se. We have legacy parties, in other words, the big parties, the prominent parties. And you will recall that sometimes in 2013, when the complacency of the People's Democratic Party was tending towards a single party system, we and some other leaders within a Nigerian state came together, put a strategy on the ground to create an alternative party, which later became an opposition party, from the implementation of the leaders of the APC. And so after that time, there have been a lot of other people who are coming together to create what is called the third force. And the idea behind the third force is having another prominent party that would not represent the ideals and the interests of those who created two different camps, from which they flock to and fro, for opportunities. So they wanted to create a different category where we can have our enlightened, educated, and well exposed, technocrats coming together under one umbrella. And that's the idea of the third force. But again, outside the third force, also we have something called the consensus. No, not the consensus. No, we have the coalition party, where a lot of other people, smaller political parties, because we have a lot of smaller political parties registered, over 100 and something of them. So most of these parties can say, okay, we don't have presidential candidates, but we prefer to join forces with other political parties and align or queue behind a single candidate, or pick 3 or 4 different candidates and vote within ourselves to pick a single one that will represent the interest of all this constellation of political parties. Also, that's the coalition. As you notice, in 2019, we tried to do that for the Mogalus, for the Federal Toys, for the Showores, and for the several other people who we know in our midst, in our society, as technocrats, to create that kind of hub for them, so that whatever goodwill that is built from there, they can now have a reason to consolidate the votes of the public under that particular umbrella.
I always say this, that it's good you mentioned the issue of the third party, third force, or what have you. I always believe that started from me, unless serendipitously someone else picked it up. I had an idea in 2014, and I went to a religious leader who is a journalist, who is big on the internet at the time, 2015, in Ukraine. And I sat down with him, shared with him this idea of the third party. But at the time, we were engaging with, Nigeria, with the campaign and everything that is going on. Before I knew it, a year or two later, I started hearing the third force. But that was an idea that I shared, unless maybe serendipitously. The idea for me of a third force is this. Now, I've often believed that APC and PDP, in my opinion, is one of the same. It's and the reasons are obvious. Whilst the formation is not similar, but the entities that forms the party, and as we can see them jump. I once said that I heard a comedian said, and I was saying it on TV on TV once, that Nigeria is APC and PDP are what you call APDCP. Like is he Edo Pikin, one of the comedians in Nigeria, once said. Now, the idea of the third force is to have another ready party that begins to build the structure and the infrastructure of what a political party will entail. Because eventually, do not rule out the possibility of APC and PDP eventually merging. And I'll tell you why. You see, the democracies that we copy around the world have emerged. They have gone through a lot. We look at in America, we deal with Democrat Party, we deal with the Republican Party, but some people will not know that deep enough that they were one of the same before, and came out of each other. And I think it's the Republican Party that came out of the revolt the revolt that happened, that led to eventuality that we now call the Republican Party and stuff like that. There are still dynamics that are possible in the Nigerian political system. But it now seems, that was my position as at 2014-15. It now seems to me, I'll be, I stand corrected. It seems to me that Nigeria is shaping up as a two-party country, similar to America, similar to Ghana, which in fact, I think is a good thing. We saw that in the 2019 election, where we have all the parties you've mentioned and some of our brothers and friends and stuff like that, they really generated a lot of wave on the media, on Twitter, but they could not even get not 0.1% of the vote. So and then I'm seeing the same thing right now where we have very intelligent, very wonderful individuals who have great experience also to run this country, but they are in what I would call the minority parties, that it is not likely that they will be able to. Not because they are not good people, not because they are not qualified, but the real truth is that they do not have the resources or the infrastructure to be able to, win elections.
I feel you're correct in a lot of ways. But let me emphasize on certain things. You see, PDP, APC are huge parties. Huge parties in the sense that they might have a lot in common, but they are not the same. There are some differences that probably may not be clear to the eyes of the people from the
So
electorate,
I
as it
want to
were.
be educated.
And in order to know, to understand the difference, before you can understand what a brand is, a brand actually represents the feelings, the emotions, the utility, that is the satisfaction a consumer derives from engaging a brand or a product or a system. So if you look at the way the level of satisfaction of Nigerians under the PDP rule and that of the APC, you can tell the difference between the two parties. And that's the best way I can actually explain it now, because you can tell that the disposition of Nigerians under the PDP government is not the same under the APC government. Because one, the expectations were very high. They've made a lot of promises, out of which majority of those, the most critical of those promises, were not met. So that created hope. They say hope defers, make the
Make
heart
the heart.
sick. So automatically you can see the level of disappointment, the level of apathy, the level of loath, hate, and whatever it is that you want to call it, that has been generated because of that. And it has led to a lot of distrust, thereby widening the institutional gaps that we have and the trust between the people and the reigning class, or if you like, the ruling class.
The really class.
But as a were,
But they would have an argument. So sorry to cut you there, but they would have an argument. This, you see, the PDP when they were coming into power, and I must put this between what I'm about to say, that I'm being educated because I've not lived here. I've never voted in this country, in Nigeria, and I've not lived here during the reign. I only have what I call the balcony view. I'm seeing from outside of the country. But the PDP had no need to make any promise because power was being handed to them directly from the military. So they did not set any expectation, and they came into the government just almost on the platter of gold. They were set up and the power was handed. And for me, I still believe, and our audience will be able to judge. My belief is that Obasanjo is the best president that we've ever had. It's a very audacious.
You just had to go there to to light the fire up on the program.
No, no, not really. It's just, this privately behind the camera. That's my disposition. That, yeah, it's a wonderful thing that is a PDP president. But I think as a person, all that I've learned and read and observed under the leadership, not just in the context of Nigeria alone, in Africa, Obasanjo, in my own opinion, is an enigma. He's not a perfect man, but then maybe you are looking at PDP based on what Obasanjo did.
No, as far as I'm concerned, I'm an observer. I know the duty of an observer in an experiment is not to have an expectation, other than to follow the rule of and the process of the experiment and be surprised by the result. So as far as I'm concerned,
that always surprised me about you anyway.
From my objective view, I believe when you say someone is the best, you are making a comparison. Best compared to what? Military rule? Because as at the time when Obasanjo came in, we had really no democracy to measure anything by. During the First Republic, the Shagari and the rest of them, they didn't run for so long before they were truncated by the military junta. And we've had series of military rule before we finally came back to democracy.
So I'm
in
actually measuring
1999.
against the Third Republic. So from him to what we've had thus.
You see, again, like I said, it depends on what the metrics that you're looking at.
The metrics are very simple. For me, first of all, is decision making. When it became, I look at number one, the banking industry. Is capitalization that make the Nigerian banks become viable, collapsing all the merchant banks and everything. My family was into banking. My uncle was into bank. I was like a banking baby. Almost 80% of my graduates in my family at some point were in banking. So for me, banking was a big deal. When I saw what he did with banking, and that make Nigeria become viable on the stock exchange. That make the Nigerian capital. Not only that, the restructuring, what was that policy he made then? I think every bank had to have, is it 200 billion or something like that, the threshold, which now makes banks to begin to merge together and be solidified. That was able to attract foreign investors into the country. What that did was to open up what we call the middle class today. Nigeria before then had two sides of its existence, the poor and the rich. The poor keep getting poorer while the rich keep getting richer. But what he did by bringing industrialization, by bringing foreign companies, telecommunication, and all those stuff, which was as a result of the economic policies that he made. That is number one. And I can give you many other,
What you need to understand and what our audience need to also know, in fairness, is that democracy was new to Nigeria as of 1999.
That's very correct. Yeah.
Especially to the people within that age, apart from the gory experience that they had during the Shagari regime, or
we don't even want to go there because
that
again,
truncated.
I would mention the name of Obasanjo there because Obasanjo won Nigeria at that time. We did not believe him.
Let me just say this so that we can understand the basis for comparison if we are going to compare at all.
Okay.
You see, Obasanjo no doubt did well, and how will I score him high and in agreement with you was because he understand what leadership was. Because as at the time he came in to power, he was meant to unite Nigeria. Remember, we're coming from military rule. A lot of people are disgruntled. A lot of things has happened, and elections were truncated. Some regions were disgruntled and all, marginalized and what have you. So he needed to be a bridge as at that time. And when you are being a bridge, there was very little resistance. We didn't really have much opposition as such. PDP was a mega party as at that time, when they went to go and bring in Obasanjo and all. So resources were there. We're making a lot of money from oil, and people who were in power then just want to be a part of something new, something bigger than them. So there really weren't much opposition. The mouths and the expectations of our politicians were not as expounded and expanded as they were going forward. That was before the declaration of a third term. So Obasanjo had, a sort of a blank slate, a blank check to work with. And with that, he used his own leadership example and leadership exposure to work with teams. In fact, he had a VP that was very active. He had, people who, in fact, they got the best of the best hands on the job. They had professors. They had people. The entire cabinet was appointed based on meritocracy. It wasn't like now that we're using nepotism and some other things to bring in people to power, or because somebody was financed an election. Okay, let us give him a slot and all those things. And these are some of the things that drags things back and cause problems within the polity.
This has been my concern about the PDP as a party. When I talk about Obasanjo, for example, I separate him now from the party, even though he has separated himself from the party, because they seems not to understand leadership as much as he understood leadership. Maybe we'll talk about other topics later on another segment, but let me focus on this. If you really see Nigeria from the outside during the reign of President Olusegun Obasanjo, you realize that when you carry the green passport, you had respect. He was able to intercept or gate crash the like of the G7, G8, G20 summit, bring his opinion, cancel out most of our debt. He was a man that was respected by the international community. Not because he wore an agbada or babariga, but because he had an intellectual contribution to the development of nations. And the funny thing about it to me is at home, and we still have some of our people running for presidency, some of the people that you and I know that will still not see any great leader and still will vilify him. I always put it this way: from Genesis to COVID, there's never been a perfect leader. There's never been in Israel, in Egypt, in Greece, in America. There's never been a perfect leader. And one of the ways to begin to see our nations is to begin to look at the content, the context of is it our national anthem that said the labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain. Not all who ruled us has been valiants, and not all valiants who have ruled us has been bad people. We have been through a lot as a nation. The way that our nation was put together was not by ourselves. It was external body that structured us or put us together. A nation normally should evolve from within itself and form itself. We now have the pieces of what we have, and I believe we should begin to look at something positive in our leaders and then begin to see what we can correct in them. I'll look at this, I understand you. And you know that we do this more behind camera better, where we can argue more freely. But I will want to establish this, that my position is this, that it will be unfair at this point to compare APC and PDP. The reason being, APC was a 16-year-old, which is now 16 plus 7, that's 23-year-old baby, to a 6-year-old baby. Secondly, all the resources of this nation was at the disposal of PDP at the time. However, the 6 years of APC so far, in my opinion, it should be scored. I will score it. In fact, I score it below a pass mark. Because like you said, number one, they've not met any expectation. And again, there was no demonstration of the understanding of leadership, which is there's no connection at all with the people.
Maybe I should clarify. It is not that, it is unfair for you to look at a political party that has ruled the nation for years and say they've done nothing. Actually, there are lots of things that have been done, but not the things that were marketed, or they were marketed and targeted towards winning votes. For example, if you have a shop, for instance, and you're selling shawarma, and you say your shawarma is top notch, and people go there, the reason why they come into your shop was not met. They were looking for top notch shawarma, but instead you actually have top notch ketchup. Your shawarma is terrible.
Okay.
So people will conclude and say there's nothing in that shop. Of course, there's something. But that something is not what you marketed to them.
That's true.
It's not the basis upon which they came into your shop. So the basis upon which Nigerians chose APC was because of security and the economy.
Correct.
Majorly. But they have, and of course, they promised to create jobs immediately, 300,000 jobs immediately. Or they will hit the ground running and all those promises. The fact that there will be free food for children and so many other things.
They were so naive, to be honest.
Then they needed to tell Nigerians what they needed to hear so that they can gain power and continue.
But I actually think they actually meant it. I recall that one of the two executives, I had a conversation of nearly 1 hour with him before they came into power. And my concern was, I was privy to know a few things and what had happened to the treasury and how the Nigerian treasury was almost being depleted. And allegedly, and I asked him, I said, sir, now that, you're taking over government and they gave me honest, genuine explanation that wowed me that this is going to happen. And funny enough, I was lucky enough to actually, the first week of them coming to power, I was with them in House of Rock, and everybody was on fire that we want to get this country on board. And this is why I'm saying to you that it appears to me that the major error is the concept of leadership has not been properly understood in this country. Because once decisions start, being made from the first day, the first week, the first month, the first year, team building as a leader, and a lot of other decisions like that, things went south. That's my opinion.
I think majorly when politicians, you see, there is a difference between leaders and activists. When activists talk about, or critics, when they talk about, when they criticize government, uh, we often assume that they can do better if the tables were turned.
Correct.
But
That's very
most of the
correct.
time, critics are not, we don't know how we talk about football and we say this ball, this one should have passed to this one, the
Yeah,
formation
yeah,
should have been
yeah,
that. If we're on the field ourselves, we won't do any better.
yeah.
So the same thing, like Yorubas, we say, he who drives who uses his mouth to drive a car, will never have an accident. But
That's true.
until you get to the steering yourself. So I think the opposition party of then, which is the APC, the ruling party of now, were not actually ready for power. They were actually, willing to push the ruling party to the edge and then foment trouble, knowing fully well that probably will not be able to topple them. But unfortunately for them, unfortunately for them, anyways, they got the power,
I think we'll
which they
take
were
a
not ready, to take the bull by the horn.
I think we'll take a break, and in the next segment we're going to look a bit more at the decisions or maybe zoning how this 2023 election is planning out as of February 2022. Thank you.
Thank you. So Abraham Great has actually said a lot of things about the party systems, how similar, how the PDP, APC, the major political parties are more or less like Siamese twins. But I still maintain that since there's no ideology in our politics in Nigeria, people who sleep as PDP members can wake up as APC members the next day, and without remorse, without any iota of guilt in them, we cannot specifically, pitch the blame or put the blame at the doorstep of any acronym. Politicians are the political class and they are the ruling class. So it is more or less the ruling class, because if you have people who criticize the APC tomorrow, joining the PDP tomorrow, they will still refer to the APC as though it's something strange and something different from who they are. Which, and if you look at the majority of the people in the APC today, they are mostly from the PDP. So it is not for the electorate. It is not about the acronym, but it's about the political class. And that is one of the reasons why we're saying there must be, hope for the future of the Nigerian political space through the coalition. Something that can rejuvenate and renew the hope of Nigerians in their leadership. Something that can bring a breath of fresh air. And I think this topic is something that is, and we cannot finish talking about right now, and it's on an ongoing conversation, and we'd like to hear from you. Follow this topic, follow this
Page,
follow this
channel.
page. If you have not subscribed, subscribe with the link that is shown on your screen, and then join us on the next episode. Dr. Great?
Yeah, I know you like to call me a doctor, but I need it to be clear to people that it's you that convert that on me. I'm not done with a PhD yet. And yeah, we wait till the time people have tried to sell me a doctorate degree, but I don't want that. I want to qualify for one. So finish soon. Thank you. I'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you very much.
Please press the subscribe button. It is working.